I'm going to go ahead and get started. So we're really excited to see everyone here at Training to Win. And I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy right now. My name's Mira. I'm a rising college freshman. I'll be heading off to Harvard in a couple of weeks, but I'm calling from Norman, Oklahoma. And I'm also an organizing fellow at the Sister District Project. So the Sister District Project is a national organization that works to turn states blue by winning state legislative elections. So we sister teams of volunteers with candidates in carefully targeted races in swing districts, where flipping control of the state legislature will advance progressive policy and help end partisan gerrymandering. Since launching in the wake of the 2016 election, Sister District Project has grown to over 45,000 volunteers across the country. Our volunteers have raised over $2.1 million in small dollar donations directly to candidates. We have over 180 active teams and affiliates, including many volunteers who are at today's conference. We collaborate with many great partner organizations around the country and invite anyone to reach out if you'd like to work with us in some way. Taylor Hogeland is an organizing manager with Sister District Project. Before joining the organization, Taylor managed and consulted on state house and judicial races in Texas. Her most notable wins include flipping a seat held by Republicans for over 20 years, electing the first Latino county judge in one of the fastest growing counties in the state, and working with 3 of the 9 state house seats that flipped in 2018. She currently lives in Austin, Texas with her 2-year-old son. And I will pass the mic to Taylor.
Great. Thank you so much, Mira. I am so excited to be with you guys today. Thank you for joining this session. I know there's a lot of great ones to choose from, which is a great problem to have. I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy and sane during these incredibly turbulent times. I am really excited to chat with y'all about our work here at Sister District, and specifically about aspects of how we've helped our volunteer leaders increase recruitment and retention and maximize candidate support during COVID. Our hope is that some of the following might have value for anyone in the role of helping leaders organize over the final 3 months of this election cycle. Again, thank you, Mira, for giving folks a great overview of our mission and accomplishments here at Sister District. And I'd like to give you just a little bit of an overview of what we do here in the organizing department. We have 3 full-time staffers, our head of organizing, and then 2 organizing managers, myself included, which each work with a portfolio of our volunteer teams and affiliates around the country. Our department works to, 1, increase candidate support. We focus almost entirely on fundraising and phone banking. We also increase our volunteer satisfaction and see to their growth as organizers. And we also build capacity, both in terms of the number of active volunteers we have on a team, but also building new teams and affiliate groups nationwide. With that said, our work is driven by a few pillars. We, 1, set volunteers up for success. 2, volunteer time is precious and we strive to protect it. And 3, there are no shortcuts in organizing. With these pillars in mind, we work very closely with our volunteer leaders to encourage, support, and collaborate with them in organizing to help candidates and build capacity. A big part of the utility of our staff for our leaders is in encouraging creativity and disseminating what works from one team to another. So how do we do this? We do this with a lot of one-on-one work with our leaders, building relationships with them, and like I said, seeing to their growth as organizers. We also have monthly all-volunteer leader calls, which offer a great opportunity to highlight what's gone well for teams, exploring solutions for those at a roadblock, and also creating dialogue and community amongst our volunteers. We also use case studies. When we have a novel idea, we track its success. Staff and leaders will collaborate on a one-pager that elaborates on what works for events, what didn't, and any roadblocks people may have faced. And then when we have that finished and all together, we are able to quickly share that with all of our other teams, which is super handy as we're focused on continuous improvement here. Now, I know a lot of us have heard a lot about how we're all adjusting our organizing during COVID, but by taking these little steps and sticking to our pillars and best practices, we've seen our work really paying off. We have seen tremendous advances in our candidate support this year, and it's because our volunteer leaders have been incredibly creative and dogged in exploiting the advantages of virtual organizing. We've raised nearly twice as much for our candidates at this point versus this time last year, and nearly 3 times as much at this point in 2018. We have also built 30 weekly or twice monthly phone banks, which is a 6-fold increase from last cycle and has helped us more than double our dial total at this point versus this point last year. And we're well on our way to exceeding our total dial goal for the year. I'd also love to highlight and shout out all of our great volunteers that have helped us make 10,000 calls in the last week and during our first weekend of action. Just incredible work. Over the next 30 minutes, I'm really excited to share 3 aspects of our work and some of the best practices we've been implementing to help our volunteer leaders increase recruitment and retention, increase support for our candidates, and boost volunteer satisfaction and fun. The first of these is volunteer recruitment by phone. If you really want someone to show up, you want to connect with them personally. And to do that most effectively, we have to pick up the phone and call them. We've always gone really big and hard on getting teams to adopt this volunteer recruitment by phone system. And we've made great strides this year related to teams creating phone outreach committees and adopting phone recruitment projects for major fundraisers and candidate events, reoccurring phone banks that have scripts including persuasion, and team planning meetings and other events. The issue here, of course, is that it takes time to make calls. It's not as easy as hitting send on an email. So it's been our job in the organizing department to A, make the case that it's a valuable use of time, and B, collaborate with and support our leaders so that their time and energy is optimized. We want them to enjoy the experience, see the good results, and feel satisfied with our tactic. So how have we made the case and gotten leaders on board? In 2019, our nonpartisan research wing, SDAN, released a study demonstrating how calls and texts are far superior to just sending an email for RSVP and attendance rates. They found that recruitment by phone or texting versus email increased RSVPs by 168%, increased attendance by 77%, and reminding those RSVPs by phone or text versus just email also increased attendance by 51%. We also share hard data from our Organizing Fellows program. And this has been particularly useful to make the case during COVID to go big on volunteer recruitment by phone. During our spring term of our Fellows program, we had a contact rate of 28%, which is a nearly 50% increase from our contact rate in 2019. We also had volunteers saying yes to at least one ask 54% of the time. During our summer term, we also saw a great contact rate of 24% and volunteers saying yes to at least one ask 42% of the time. We also track performance of other teams adopting our volunteer recruitment by phone system and share those experiences with other teams through our case studies. For example, we might share that our sister district Portland team had a fundraiser. They only had 10 registrants a week out, but then after making calls through their volunteer list, they ended up with 74 registrants after the recruitment calls. Our Sonoma County East team had increased their recurring meeting attendance by 25% using our system. And now they have a phone recruitment team that does this as a standard operating procedure for all their fundraising events. And this one's my favorite. Our Minnesota team and fellows were calling for a candidate fundraiser. And in the process, they found a volunteer to lead volunteer recruitment by phone programs in the future. So how do we implement this and then set up people for success? When our teams are planning a fundraiser, an event, or a meeting, they have it coming down the pipeline, we'll walk them through and customize our standardized script, laying out the primary, secondary, and tertiary asks, and then train them on how to use our spreadsheet system. I've included a screenshot of our spreadsheet that we use for all this. We use handy dandy Google Sheets. These allow multiple remote callers to collaborate, to view each other's work. So there's a little bit of an accountability factor. And the interface is super simple. We all know the Google Sheets, we all use it, and it makes sense to volunteers. Our program, like I said, always includes a primary, secondary, and tertiary ask, including, or with one of those being phone banking, since that is our #1 tactic for remote voter contact. It allows us to have full visibility at a glance, allowing us to help supplement those leaders if they are running a little bit behind or they don't have capacity with our fellows, like Mira. So just a few takeaways from our volunteer recruitment by phone system. We attribute so much of our success in candidate support this year to the broader adoption of these systems in our spreadsheets. Our leaders are also happy that we can provide meaningful assistance and collaboration to actually increase attendance. They can directly see the positive outcomes. And especially during COVID, this has been the right tactic to emphasize with our teams. The next best practices I want to share are around virtual fundraising events. Like I said, candidate fundraising for us is double to this point in 2020 versus this point in 2019. Our teams have done incredible work and made the most of candidate fundraising events and increasing attendance at their events. Part of this success is due to exploiting the advantages of virtual fundraising. And you all know those advantages. As one of our volunteers put it, she raised $1,000 for our candidate and didn't even have to clean her house, which is a huge win for all of us. So how do we set our teams up for success? Our teams do all kind of candidate fundraisers, including special guest appearances, and we devote a lot of time and energy to making sure that we maximize candidate time, contributions, and attendance. We also greenlight creativity. Our mentality is to greenlight ideas as long as they're within compliance, and work closely with leaders to develop and make the most of their time and energy. We also disseminate what works. We offer virtual step-by-step guides for fundraising. We write blog posts. We have our case studies. We have our one-on-one calls. And again, we have our volunteer leader call, which allows for knowledge sharing. Vast majority of our leaders have been with us and working together for multiple cycles. So there's tons of cross-pollination of ideas. We also standardize planning, prep, and execution. We use working docs with a standard 45-minute agenda with similar event flows and a careful use of candidate time. We also have an advanced planning meeting with staff for speaking assignments, run of show, messaging to make sure the most compelling arguments are the foreground. And this is the most important point, but we spend a lot of time coaching around making the ask. We provide fundraising donation menus, an early money guide, and we love to pair new askers with veterans to talk shop and to make the most out of their ask. So what has worked for our teams in increasing candidate fundraising? We've thrown tons of candidate and special guest appearances in the form of town halls, meet and greets, and even bringing in our sister district co-founders. We also throw tons of creative events. Our volunteers are absolutely incredible and super creative. We've done silent auctions. There's been a ton of food and drink events, including wine and beer tastings, cooking classes. And we also have volunteers that will throw Pilates, yoga, Zumba, and dance classes, which are honestly super fun to attend. We also go super big on these fundraisers. These are low dollar, light lift events for volunteers to throw, inviting their family and friends that are just nice, neat little events that raise necessary funds that are super simple and easy to throw. So just a few takeaways then from our virtual fundraising. We love to track and disseminate what's working so that as an entire team, we are continuously improving. We also hammer hard the standardized agendas and prep calls that streamline and save volunteer time and energy. And as staff, we are able to ensure that we incorporate the best new creative ideas and avoid any problems they may face. And 3, fundraisers. These small dollar friend and family gatherings are the best way to scale fundraising in our system, and the teams have adopted such programming with great success. Something else I'd love to talk about is our reoccurring phone banks. We go really big on phone banking here at Sister District, and virtual phone banks should be here to stay with all the massive advantages. We have 30 reoccurring weekly or twice monthly phone banks, which makes for a really fun time when you're able to pop in and out of all the teams from across the country. So how do we set the teams up for success? Well, we'll disseminate what works again. We have a virtual phone banking step-by-step guide that's continuously updated, and a training guide for how to do the most effective, concise 15-minute training. We also have case studies like the one released yesterday on a phone bank battle between our Oregon teams and the East Bay team on our Weekend of Action kickoff. It's super fun and nice to see our volunteers working together, but also experiencing the trash talk. I'll tell you that the best trash talk was from Salil in the East Bay, who let the Oregon teams know that their farms are actually closer to their tables. So it's just fun and makes for great community. We also put in a lot of time as staff to make sure that our new phone banker leaders conduct proper trainings. We'll join the first couple phone banks with new leaders and then pop in frequently to rally the troops later on. And phone bank leaders are also asked to join already well-run phone banks. If anyone wants to join one of our really well-run phone banks, we're happy to have you and invite you to connect. We also use one-on-one prep calls with phone bank leaders to train the trainers. We also focus heavily on dial efficiency. This makes for great motivation in terms of retaining people, giving them something to strive to work towards. And this focus has really helped folks keep coming back. Moving as many teams as we can to reoccurring phone banks has been the key to our success in 2020. And it's important to have cadence to keep and recruit and retain volunteers, as well as to give us some normalcy here in quarantine. Collaborations are also important. We work with our 48 college, young, and high school Democratic chapter affiliates to collaborate with each other. And with teams on phone banks, we have, or with virtual phone banks, we have multiple teams joining the same phone banks, calling for the same candidates. We also go heavy on phone bank recruitment. We will call our volunteers to invite them to our phone banks. Phone banking is always our secondary or tertiary ask for a fundraising event recruitment. And our phone recruitment scripts include persuasion, which is really exciting. We also offer template emails for phone bank leaders to share success and recruiting, debriefs, data visualizations, anything that will help make a successful email. So just to kind of wrap up everything that we do here at Sister District, I'll just mention 3 things that have really worked for us this year, especially during COVID. And if anyone is interested in talking about any of this, please let us know. We are so grateful to have been here and working with you on advancing progressive change in this country. First, we go heavy on our volunteer recruitment by phone system. If you want people to show up, you've got to call them. And we attribute a significant amount of our increase in candidate support this year to broad adoption among our teams. Second, disseminating what works for continuous improvement. In particular, the case studies we do enable us to share stories, ideas, outcomes with real actionable information just in time for leaders planning and executing events and programming. And third, we encourage creativity and we greenlight these ideas that our volunteers come up with and then invest the time and energy to prepare volunteer leaders for maximum success in raising dollars for candidates. This means coaching to make the ask, standardizing agendas and approaches based on what's working, doing those prep calls in advance to do the run of show. Again, these are just 3 things that we're doing to ensure success here at Sister District. And if you have any questions, I'd love to connect, or you can put them in the chat, and I can try and answer them.
Taylor, I'm seeing 2 questions here. And that people have asked in the chat. So the first one is, the number of super enthusiastic volunteers in our pool has dwindled somewhat. How do you avoid burnout and keep people motivated?
Yeah, burnout is real, especially when we're all just sitting at home and probably going a million miles an hour. One thing that I love that some of our teams will do, especially our team in Marin, Linda Herman was here earlier, but they'll throw just happy hour cocktail events to celebrate their successes, to give everyone a pat on the back, but to also remind folks that we're all in this together. Burnout is incredibly real, but just find little ways to connect with your volunteers without making an ask of them, of course, to get them to phone bank. And Linda is still here. She is great. Her team loves the happy hour events.
And is activism up more than what would be expected for a presidential year?
I don't know how to answer that. I think we live in unprecedented times with an unprecedentedly awful president right now. So I don't know. I've been very encouraged to see the amount of activism from folks all around the country, working to, 1, get rid of Donald Trump out of the White House, but 2, to also invest time and energy into these down ballot races. I'm seeing one question or a couple of questions about dial efficiency. This is something that our head of organizing loves to hammer home to folks. That is how fast we are making dials, or how much time we're taking up in between our dials. Our goal for phone banking is to make the most dials as we can, to dial like the wind. And so we measure our dial efficiency by taking or figuring how long folks are calling for, and then seeing how many dials they're making, and then using our trainings to then help folks make those dials more efficiently. We like to suggest folks are making a dial every 1 to 2 minutes. So that's just something that our volunteer leaders will track, and we're able to help promote, figure out ways to make more effective phone bankers, and also just gives us a compelling reason to ask folks to keep coming for our research purposes. I see someone asked, what dialing software do we use? We use good old-fashioned Van. We have just tremendous volunteers that will call through all of those virtual phone banks. I'm seeing, yes, we do share our dial results with campaigns. We have tremendous field managers here at Sister District, Ore and Oscar, that work directly with campaigns, that that serve as liaisons between campaigns and volunteers. Leslie, I see your question on what type or time of day is most effective for phone banks. We let folks call whenever they want to call. The only time that we do have a hard parameter around is Sunday mornings to early afternoons. Mary, your question on how to get past a prospective volunteer's initial fear of making calls. Honestly, it all comes down to the training you do with those folks. Invite people to join your phone banks a couple minutes early. We tend to recommend 30 or 15 minutes early, and go through a really cohesive training with them. Make sure that all their questions are answered. But something that I love that we do here at Sister District is we go over what success looks like. In phone banking, success looks like a wrong number or a disconnected number, because then the campaigns don't have to spend time or money contacting those folks. We also celebrate finding a Republican in these independent universes. It's really fun to find a Republican because, no one ever has to talk to them again from the campaign. So you're saving the campaign time and money. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. Again, my email address is up on the screen. Feel free to email me with any questions or to connect about Sister District if you're interested in getting involved. Lena, yes, if you go to sisterdistrict.com, you can find a list of all of our teams. Or you can email me, and I'm more than happy to connect you with our volunteer leaders in your area.